Hello, Namaskar, Vanakkam. My name is TS Sudhir, and you're watching Study with Sudhir, your own digital classroom. I hope all of you are doing extremely well. Now, in this video, I'm going to do a one-shot revision of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers chapter. Many of you have been asking me for this one, and I do believe that this is the most complicated, complex, along with the Parliament chapter, because this concerns the most powerful person in the country. The Prime Minister is really the real power as far as the government of India structure is concerned. तो आपको इसके बारे में डिटेल में समझने की जरूरत है, क्योंकि 2024 से आपके जो बोर्ड एग्जामिनेशन पेपर्स हैं, those will be analytical, application based, understanding based questions. You need to understand more than just rote learn. Many of your seniors would tell you that अरे history civics का क्या है, rote learn history and civics. That is not going to work anymore now, because now you would need to understand and be able to apply that understanding to the questions that are asked in the board examinations. And that essentially is our effort. My idea is not just to cut paste the textbook onto a note form and present before you, but instead, with the help of examples, with the help of several examples, be able to explain to you the various nuances. And this really comes into effect as far as the civics chapters are concerned, much more than history. So let's get started with the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers chapter. Okay, so this is the Prime Minister and Council's chapter, one short video ahead of the 2024 board examinations. Let's just have a look at India's Prime Minister, starting with Jawaharlal Nehru from 1947 till May 1964. Followed by Lal Bahadur Shastri. I put the photographs of those who served for a significant period of time, at least one full 5-year term. Lal Bahadur Shastri was there only for 2 years, from 1964 to 1966. Then followed Indira Gandhi for a very long period of time. Then came the Janta rule in 1977 when Morarji Desai, followed by Charan Singh, were two prime ministers, but they did not survive a full term in office. Indira Gandhi came back to power in 1980. She was assassinated on the 31st of October 84, after which her son Rajiv Gandhi took over as Prime Minister. He served a full 5 years, followed by VP Singh and Chandrasekhar, both short-lived governments, followed by PV Narasimha Rao on your extreme right, who kind of ruled from 1991 to 1996, even though it was a minority government, followed by several coalition governments. None of them survived in office. Deve Gowda, I.K. Gujral, in between Atal Bihari Vajpayee, also a 13-day government. And then Atal Bihari Vajpayee, on your extreme left bottom, came back to power for a full term in 1999 till 2004. And from 2004 to 2014 was Dr. Manmohan Singh at your bottom right, sitting with the present Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. So that gives you an idea about the different prime ministers who have presided over the fortunes of India since independence. Now, let's now understand the office of the Prime Minister. He's appointed by the President of India, right? That is as far as the technicality is concerned, that his appointment is by the President. But how does it actually happen? It happens because after the general elections to the Lok Sabha, like it would happen now in the month of April, May 2024, after the general election, whichever party gets more than 272 seats, this is the magical mark. You need to cross the 272 mark in order to get into power, and whoever is elected as the leader of that parliamentary party will be invited by the President of India to come and form the government, take the oath of office as the Prime Minister of the country. That is the norm. But in the Constitution, how it is written is that he's appointed by the Prime Minister. This is pretty much similar to the Westminster model in UK, because our Constitution was essentially modeled on what happens in Great Britain. Then other ministers are appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. These are all key phrases. Isko kabhi bhi ignore mat karna. Many students make the mistake of writing in their own words. No, Baba, certain terms, keywords, key phrases, you need to use what has been used in your textbook, or if you're part of the SWS courses in your notes, you need to use the same words or key phrase. Then the Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister at the head, the Council of Ministers aids and advises the President through the Prime Minister. It is a norm that the Prime Minister calls on the President of India quite frequently at Rashtrapati Bhavan to brief her on what is happening in the country, on any major issue, etc., etc. And therefore, any kind of advice is passed on to the President by the Prime Minister. He is like the link between the President and the Council of Ministers. Please remember this. Now, the President is obviously a nominal head, while the real executive head is the Prime Minister of India. The tenure of the Prime Minister, right? This is 5 years. However, this is subject to some conditions. As I mentioned, the reason why I mentioned all the Prime Ministers since 1947 was because there have been cases where the Prime Minister has not survived the entire 5 years. Nehru did, Indira Gandhi did, Rajiv Gandhi did, Narasimha Rao did, Manmohan Singh did, Narendra Modi did, but VP Singh did not, Morarji Desai did not, Charan Singh did not, Chandrasekhar did not, Deve Gowda did not, Lal Bahadur Shastri did not, IK Gujral did not, because either they passed away when they were in office, like Lal Bahadur Shastri, or they were voted out of power, right? The government collapsed, like in the case of the Janata Party between 77 and 80, or in the case of Deve Gowda, etc., no confidence motion, etc., was passed, and he resigned before the no confidence motion could be taken up in the Lok Sabha. Or in the case of Vajpayee, where he was defeated because of a no confidence motion. So all these things can happen, and therefore it is 5 years subject to some conditions. I hope you have understood this, because this can be an understanding based or application based question that could be asked. Now, can the president appoint anyone as the president? Well, I just now told you what is the procedure for the election or of the prime minister. It's also known as the keystone of the cabinet arc, because the prime minister has absolute powers in the formation of the Council of Ministers. Very recently, May 2023, Kiran Rijiju, who was the law minister in the Narendra Modi cabinet, his portfolio was shifted to the Department Ministry of Earth Sciences, and Arjun Meghwal was appointed as the law minister. Now, who decided this? Did the president decide it? No. It is the prime minister who decided that I want the portfolio of this person to be shifted and another person to be posted in his particular ministry. Also, is it possible, for instance, the prime minister says that I want XYZ to be appointed as these ministers. Can the president say that, no, you appoint X, but don't appoint Y, I don't like him? No, the president does not have the power to say that. The prime minister, this word is important, absolute powers in the formation of the Council of Ministers. He decides who will be in the ministry, who will be holding what portfolio. I hope I have made myself clear, right? Good. Now, as far as the Council of Ministers is concerned, all the ministers are individually responsible to the President of India, because they're administered the oath of office and secrecy by the President of India. Individually responsible is term par dhyan dijiye, right? The ministers are also answerable to Parliament for their departments. Yani ki, agar, for instance, Agriculture Ministry, or let's say the Industries Ministry, or let's say the Railways Ministry, के ऊपर कोई प्रश्न पूछा जाता है लोकसभा में या राज्यसभा में, तो उसका उत्तर देने की जिम्मेदारी उस मंत्रालय के मंत्री के ऊपर ही आती है. For example, if there is a question to be asked on, let's say, the 5G policy of the government, so the question will be posed to the communication minister, which in this case is Ashwini Vaishnav, and he will have to stand in the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha where the question has been asked and reply to that particular member of parliament. It could be from the ruling party, it could be from the opposition benches. So that is the norm. So they're answerable to parliament for their particular departments or ministries. The prime minister and the ministers hold office during the pleasure of the president. Is this true or false? Now, the president, obviously, as I just now explained, has very little power in this regard. Okay, he really has very little power in this particular regard, because the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers are collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha, because it is the Lok Sabha which can move a no confidence motion, not the Rajya Sabha, as we have seen in the Parliament chapter. Any doubts, please see the Parliament chapter which we have done a few months ago, I think about 4 months ago, and also the President chapter done in detail. आपको पूरी तरह से समझ में आ जाएगा. There are purane videos also, but I would suggest you'll see the latest video. And they can remain in office till they enjoy the majority of the Lok Sabha. So it's not dependent, technically speaking, on the pleasure of the president. President cannot say that, I don't like you, so I will dismiss you. No. Till you have the above 272 members in the Lok Sabha, nothing can remove you as the Prime Minister of the country. Okay. Ministers can be removed depending on the Prime Minister's desire. Okay. If a no confidence motion is passed, all of them resign. Prime Minister resigns, automatically the Council of Ministers also resign. Okay. It's not as though Prime Minister chala gaya, Council of Ministers rahenge. No. Prime Minister gaya. Prime Minister is like the heart of the entire government body. The heart stops, the entire body goes. So it is like that. So the Prime Minister is the most important personality, the most important entity. Now let's understand cabinet, because that's what, see, Council of Ministers is a mega body, right? Body body hai. Takriban 75 se 80, 75 to 80 ministers are there in the Council of Ministers. But the real power is in this body called the cabinet, which is a smaller and a cohesive group. Now, what is interesting is that till 1979, the Indian Constitution, when it was framed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's team in 1946-1947, it was adopted it was finished in November, 26 November, but it was formally adopted when India became a republic on the 26th of January 1950. Okay, 1946-47 क्यों बोला? 1949-50. Sorry, I beg your pardon. 1949-50. 1949 November May, it was kind of adopted and formally adopted on January 1950. Sorry, I should not make such mistakes. Oh, slip of the tongue mein na chala jata hai. Now, that particular constitution did not include the word cabinet. So in the year 1979, as per the 44th amendment to the Constitution of India, which is why the Constitution of India is considered to be a flexible constitution, the amendment was introduced in which the word cabinet was introduced for the first time. Why was it introduced? Iske piche bhi ek dilchasp kahani hai. 1975 mein, when national emergency was imposed by Indira Gandhi, who was Prime Minister, the cabinet did not take the decision. The cabinet did not meet to recommend emergency imposition in India. Indira Gandhi and few others, they sent the letter to Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed, who was the president of India at that time, and he signed. In fact, there are some very famous cartoons of that time. So uske baad ye decide kiya gaya ki unless the cabinet gives it in writing that emergency has to be imposed, the president cannot impose emergency in any part of the country. Okay, so emergency can be proclaimed only if the president receives the decision of the cabinet in writing. That's important. Please remember this. Now, so that's when 1979 के बाद ही Council of Ministers or Cabinet के बीच का जो अंतर है, as far as the Constitution is concerned, became clear in so many words. It was spelled out in black and white. Now, there are three categories of ministers. First is the cabinet ministers, the second is the ministers of state, and the third is deputy ministers. Now, deputy ministers were a norm when Nehru, etc. were prime minister, but aajkal nobody gets sworn in as a deputy minister. But since it is there in your book and books, unfortunately, don't get updated. I don't know why. It is still being spoken of like that. But aaj ki tareekh mein, you have cabinet ministers, you have ministers of state, and you have ministers of state with independent charge who are senior to ministers of state. Okay, so I'll explain the difference. The cabinet ministers is a smaller cohesive group. You have Home Minister Amit Shah, Foreign Minister Jai Shankar, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, You will have Industries Minister Piyush Goyal. You will have Railways Minister Ashwini Vaishnav. So you will have Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari. You will have these ministers who are a smaller cohesive group, the trusted colleagues of the Prime Minister. They hold the important portfolios. That's very important. Home, defense, finance, industry, communications, railways, transport, etc. These are important portfolios. They are held by the senior cabinet ministers. They are senior politicians within that ruling party. And the cabinet is the one which decides the policy and the programs. What should be our foreign policy vis-a-vis China, vis-a-vis Pakistan, vis-a-vis USA? What should be our position on the Russia-Ukraine war or on the conflict in Middle East? Or what should we tell the World Bank? What should we tell the International Monetary Fund, right? What should be our industry policy? What should be our sports policy? All these things are decided by the cabinet. So cabinet is the real powerful body headed by the prime minister. Then comes this category of ministers, which is called the ministers of state holding independent charge. Now, what it means is that these ministers of state holding independent charge, they report directly to the prime minister. They don't have a cabinet minister to report to. They're holding independent charge. So what it means is that in terms of seniority, these ministers are not so senior that they can be inducted as cabinet ministers. However, they are still senior, mid-senior level, so they can be allowed to independently handle a particular ministry, which may not be a ministry as heavyweight as finance and home and defense, but it could be, let's say, I don't know who are all holding the ministers of state with independent charge these days. But certain ministries, and I don't want to belittle any ministry by naming that particular ministry because I'm not sure. So particular ministries are said that, okay, this will be an independent charge. Pehle sports ministry वगैरह ऐसा होते थे, tourism वगैरह इस तरह से होते थे, where they would say independent charge will be given. Okay. Then there is a third category called the ministers of state who report to cabinet minister. For example, under, let's say, the home minister Amit Shah, he will have two ministers of state who will be handling different subjects like Naxalism, Northeast. Another minister of state will be holding charge of coastal security, border security, etc. So what happens is that Amit Shah as the home minister is the overall in charge, but he will have these two ministers of state who will kind of assist him with certain specific departments under their charge, right? And the third category, now, as I said, it's mentioned in your book, so you might as well know about it. They assist the cabinet ministers, which is actually now ministers of state. Okay. Then but they do not attend the cabinet meetings because cabinet meeting is headed by the cabinet minister. Ministers of state with independent charge, they could be invited in case their particular ministry or department is being discussed as a matter of policy in the cabinet. In that case, they could be invited to say that, okay, आप इस cabinet meeting में आइए because आपके department की कोई बातचीत इस cabinet meeting में होने जा रही है. Okay, so the deputy ministers or the minister of state are not really consulted by the prime minister. I hope this distinction is clear with all the help of examples that I have given you. Now, this is the difference. Know the difference between the Council of Ministers and the Ministers of State. So the Council of Ministers, Council of Ministers and the Cabinet. Sorry, this is the Cabinet. Okay. Council of Ministers is a larger group. As I said, 75 to 80%, 80 members honge, 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha. The Prime Minister may not consult the entire Council of Ministers. They rarely meet. कभी ऐसा नहीं है कि पूरे Council of Ministers की meeting होती है, वो सिर्फ Cabinet की meeting होती है. So power is really only on paper. You know that the Council of Ministers advises the President through the Prime Minister बोलने के लिए है. असली में तो कैबिनेट का ही डिसीजन होता है. So the cabinet is a smaller group of senior trusted ministers. They determine the policy and they advise the president in actual terms. Okay. Now, some of you have been asking me a few doubts which in the last few days and weeks. So I thought, let me clarify this. Prime Minister, one of the doubts that was asked to me is whether the Prime Minister is the leader of the Lok Sabha or is it the Speaker? Now, please remember that the speaker is the The speaker is the presiding officer, okay, of the Lok Sabha. The leader of the Lok Sabha will be the Prime Minister unless a situation where he is not a member of the Lok Sabha. Now, the present Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a member of the Lok Sabha from Varanasi Lok Sabha constituency, so he becomes the leader of the Lok Sabha. Dr. Manmohan Singh was a Rajya Sabha MP. He was a Rajya Sabha MP from Assam. So he was the leader of the Rajya Sabha, while Pranab Mukherjee, till the time that he became president, he used to be the leader of the Lok Sabha because he was a Lok Sabha MP and the senior most MP of the Congress at that particular point in time. So Narendra Modi is the leader of the Lok Sabha, while the speaker is the presiding officer of the Lok Sabha. So please remember this distinction. Students had asked me, so I thought, let me say this. The Prime Minister is the one who is actually like the official spokesperson in India or abroad. For instance, we saw Narendra Modi speaking at the Ram Janmabhoomi temple during the Pran Pratishtha ceremony. He was talking to the entire country. We have also seen when he goes abroad, meets foreign dignitaries, he's representing the country, which is why his Twitter or X profile says Prime Minister of India. He's also very active on Twitter or on X, wherein he kind of keeps conversing or interacting or communicating with all his followers so that they understand, what is that he is trying to do. And in doing that, he is representing the voice and the opinion and the views of the government of India and India as a whole. So I hope this is clear. Another doubt that was asked to me is whether a Rajya Sabha MP can become a minister. So the example is there right in front of you. Nirmala Sitharaman, the Union Finance Minister, is a Rajya Sabha MP and, as her Twitter bio says, from representing Karnataka. Okay, so she's a Rajya Sabha MP elected from Karnataka, and she's a minister, the Finance and Corporate Affairs Minister in the Union Cabinet. Another doubt, in fact, only this morning, a student called Ajinkya on my course, he had asked, can a nominated member MP of the Rajya Sabha be made a minister? Technically can be, but आज की तारीख तक आज तक कभी भी ऐसा नहीं हुआ है कि एक nominated member, from any of the literary or cinema or sports field, etc., has been made a minister. That has not happened till now. Okay, but technically, I don't think there is any issue. Now, someone like G. Kishan Reddy, who is the MP from Secunderabad, he was earlier the Minister of State for Home, reporting to Amit Shah. So he was deputy to Amit Shah, right? Number 2 minister in the Home Ministry. Thereafter, he was made the Union Minister for Culture and Tourism. So now he's a minister in his own right. He's now a minister in his own right. He has been promoted, right? So that is what happens. So earlier he was a Minister of State, and now he is now a full-fledged Union Minister. So that is what you need to understand. He's a Lok Sabha MP. Nirmala Sitharaman is a Rajya Sabha MP. I hope these doubts have been clarified. Now, let me also show you what happens simultaneously at the state level. Not that states are in your syllabus, but since many of you are more familiar with state politics and state level, the same format works at the state level also. Let me explain. I'll take the example of Tamil Nadu. M.K. Stalin is the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, right? Now, he decides who will be in his ministry. Does Prime Minister decide who will be minister in Tamil Nadu? No. It will be M.K. Stalin or anywhere. Okay, I mean, BJP, if there is a BJP government, the central leadership of the BJP decides, like it happens in a national party. But technically speaking, it is the Chief Minister of a state who will decide who will hold what portfolio, who is to be inducted into his ministry. So M.K. Stalin, as the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, decides that Anbil Mahesh will be my school education minister. He decides that T.R.B. Raja will be my industries minister. Earlier, it was P.T.R. Tyagarajan who was his industries minister. A year or so ago, he was moved out and made the IT minister, information technology minister, and Raja was made the industries minister. That prerogative is with M.K. Stalin as the chief minister of the state of Tamil Nadu. So I hope you are able to understand the parallels between the center and the state. Okay, I just thought, let me clarify, because there are many students who were asking these kind of doubts. So I hope with the help of these examples, it is now clear. Size of the Council of Ministers. As I said, not more than 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha. Why was this done? This was done to curb government expenditure, because what was happening is that many people would say that, okay, हमारे 20 MPs या MLAs आपके गवर्नमेंट में शामिल, आपकी पार्टी में शामिल हो जाएंगे जो कि सरकार में है, राइट? Suppose they have a very thin majority, they have just a little above the halfway mark, they want to ensure that they have more members. So if another party says that, okay, I will come with my 20 members, or I will join your party, but make 10 of my MPs or MLAs as ministers. So what will happen is that it will become a jumbo size council of ministers. Everybody will be made a minister. खर्चा ज्यादा होगा सरकार का. So इसलिए 2003 में 2003 according to the 91st amendment to the Constitution of India in 2003, this was made that it cannot be more than, the Council of Ministers size cannot be more than 15% of the total strength of Lok Sabha. This was a cap, which was a ceiling which was put on the size of the Council of Ministers. उसमें से कितने लोग कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स हो सकते हैं, that prerogative is with the Prime Minister. कैबिनेट के ऊपर कोई रोक नहीं है, लेकिन काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स के ऊपर देयर इज अ सीलिंग that it cannot be more than 15% of the size of the Lok Sabha. Similarly, in the case of the states, जितने भी states का strength रहे, for example, Tamil Nadu, जिसका example I just now took, there are 234 MLAs. So it will be 15% of 234, who can be ministers in the cabinet. For instance, let's take another example. Andhra Pradesh has 175 MLAs. So the size of the Council of Ministers cannot be more than 15% of 175. So that is the ceiling. I hope this is clear. Then, okay, ye ho gaya. Oath of office. Everybody is administered the oath of office and secrecy, right? When they basically say that they will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India. They've promised to uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India. They will not do anything which is anti-national, and they will faithfully discharge the duties without fear, without favor. That is, they will not favor any particular person or industry body or a group of people, or do anything as revenge कि मैं इसका बदला लेता हूं, अभी मैं मंत्री बन गया, मैं बदला लूंगा, इस तरह की बातें नहीं हो सकती. Let's do some test questions. At whose mercy can a minister stay in office? Technically, according to the Constitution, at the pleasure of the president. However, it is only on the advice of the Prime Minister can the president sack a particular minister or remove or dismiss a particular minister. So the real takat is with the Prime Minister. Then the second question, Hariram Avasthi was sworn in as Union Transport Minister in January 2022, but he was forced to resign in July 2022. भला क्यों? इसका कारण क्या हो सकता है? इसका कारण ये हो सकता है कि हरिराम अवस्थी को सांसद बनने का मौका ना मिला हो. He was not a minister because the Constitution says that in 6 months you need to get elected as an MP, either of the Lok Sabha or of the Rajya Sabha. So in January 2022, I may not be, Hariram Avasthi may not be an MP, but he has time of 6 months during which he needs to become an MP, right? ऐसा हुआ भी है, not at the center, जहां तक मुझे याद है, states में जरूर हुआ है. I remember in 1996 when Chandrababu Naidu became the chief minister, he inducted N. Hari Krishna, who was his brother-in-law, NTR's third son, as transport minister. But within 6 months, Hari Krishna could not get elected to the assembly as an MLA, and therefore he had to resign after the period of 6 months. Of course, इसमें राजनीति भी काफी थी, but that's another story. Now, let's come to the functions of the cabinet. The first one is policy making. As I said, industry policy, sports policy, entertainment policy, women and child welfare policy. क्या होगा, foreign policy with Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan, whatever. Everything is decided by the cabinet. They formulate the external and internal policies. As I said, all ministers have to consult the cabinet. The transport minister or the industry minister cannot say that I am this thing, I will do it. He has to get the approval of the cabinet, which is why they decide collectively before any policy decision can be taken. So it is called collective decision making, and therefore it is called collective responsibilities. का मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब ये है that if a policy is being discussed and debated in the cabinet, I, as a minister, may have some issues. Industry policy decide हो रही है. I am the labor minister. I think certain provisions of that industry policy will affect the labor class, the worker class. So I can raise objections saying that no, इसमें फेरबदल होना चाहिए. It should be changed a bit, etc. However, once it's possible that the cabinet may decide that okay, labor minister has a point, let's change point number 1, but point number 2 ऐसा ही होगा, change नहीं होगा. बाहर आके labor minister cannot say कि ये point number 2 change नहीं किया, बकवास किया and all that kind of thing. That cannot happen. When you come outside, you have to collectively defend the decision of the cabinet, because it's collective decision making, and you have to collectively take responsibility to defend that decision taken by the union cabinet. So it's collective decision making and collective responsibility. I hope it is clear now. What are the administrative functions of the cabinet? Decisions taken by the cabinet are communicated to the ministries. They coordinate the functions of the different ministries. For example, जैसे कोविड के टाइम पे देखा था, for example, many people were airlifted from other countries, Indians who were stuck in various other countries. Now, it cannot be just one ministry which is responsible. Civil Aviation Ministry would be responsible, will be involved. Foreign Affairs Ministry will be involved. Home Ministry will be involved. Defense Ministry will be involved if there are any Air Force choppers, etc., which are being sent, or Navy ships which would be sent. So, all this coordination between the different ministries, kaun karega? That is done by the union cabinet, which has a secretariat. The cabinet secretary is the senior most IAS officer in India at that particular point in time. So he, along with the cabinet secretariat, coordinates the functioning between the different ministries. Okay. All appointments are decided by the cabinet. For example, who will be the ambassador to, let's say, Finland, Norway? Who will be our representative in the International Monetary Fund or ASEAN or the World Bank? All these decisions are taken by the cabinet. Or who will be governor of, let's say, Karnataka or of Maharashtra? All these decisions are taken by the cabinet, sent to Rashtrapati Bhavan, president signs, then the appointment is made. Okay, so technically नाम आएगा नीचे राष्ट्रपति का, लेकिन असली जो निर्णय लिया है, decision लिया है, that is done by the cabinet. Clear? I'm giving you a lot of examples so that it becomes easy for you to understand revision ke time pe, because there will be many who may have doubts about certain things, and I'm hoping that I'm providing you with clarity. Okay. One point that I missed out here, यहाँ पर एक phrase का इस्तेमाल होता है that the cabinet swims and sinks together, यानी कि तैरते भी इकट्ठा है, डूबते भी इकट्ठा है. डूबते इकट्ठा क्यों है? क्योंकि अगर नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन आया तो सभी को रिजाइन करना पड़ेगा. इट्स नॉट लाइक वन पर्सन. नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन के केस में पर्टिकुलर्स, व्हिच इज व्हाई दिस पर्टिकुलर फ्रेज इज यूज्ड विद कनेक्शन in connection with the cabinet. And it is the same even at the state level. It's not as though it's any different. What are the legislative functions? The cabinet formulates and introduces bills in parliament. It pilots the bill, means that it introduces and takes care that the bill is passed in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. It sees them through. Whatever amendments to the constitution, मैंने 2 amendments की बात कही अभी. President's address, which is done once in a year, which is at the beginning of the first session of parliament, which is the budget session, January ke end mein, and the first session after the new Lok Sabha is elected. So 2024 will see President Draupadi Murmu addressing the parliament twice. Once now in January, end of January, before the budget session, and after the new Lok Sabha is elected, sometime in the month May mein elect hoke aa jayenge. So whenever parliament is convened, it will be the monsoon session. Okay, so most likely sometime in the month of July 2024. Issuing of ordinances when one of the houses is not in session. How does parliament control executive? Let's look at this test question. Now, what are the points that you need to mention? This is for section B, the longer format. No confidence motion, adjournment motion, ये सब हमने parliament chapter में पढ़ लिया है. Rejecting a government bill, passing an amendment to the bill against the wishes of the government. सरकार खुश नहीं है, लेकिन आपने, because आपके पास numbers हैं, जैसे राज्यसभा में काफी बार ऐसा होने के chances लगते हैं कि that राज्यसभा में create problems for the government if the government does not have sufficient numbers in the Rajya Sabha. Okay, you may be in power with the Lok Sabha, obviously, or voting for a cut in the budget. Okay, finance bill, money bill वगैरह में इस तरह से कुछ हो गया तो. Now let's look at the relationship between the Prime Minister and the President. He's the principal advisor to the President of India. This keyword is important. He's the nominal head president, while the Prime Minister is the real head. He's the link between the President and the Council of Ministers, what I said to you right at the beginning. Summoning of Parliament ki kab बैठक बुलानी है संसद की, that is decided by the cabinet and communicated to the president by the prime minister, because the president is the one who is summoning the parliament. It is done in the name of the president that the Lok Sabha will meet from XYZ date, and all the appointments, as I said, are made in the name of the President of India. Relationship between prime minister and cabinet: he's the leader of the cabinet, obviously, allocates portfolios, मैंने बता दिया, power to select and dismiss, coordinates working of the ministries, okay, through the cabinet and through the prime minister's office. Prime minister resigns, the ministry goes. ऐसा नहीं है कि prime minister चला गया, ministry चलती रहेगी, नहीं चलेगी. What's the relationship between prime minister and parliament? He's the leader of the Lok Sabha. मैंने star mark इसलिए लगाया है for reasons that I mentioned earlier. Okay, जो अगर if he's a Rajya Sabha MP, then it makes it different. He intervenes in critical issues. He's the one who makes the thing in parliament. When the prime minister stands and talks, the entire country listens. He's representing the ruling party's viewpoint. He defends the policies of the government कि क्यों ऐसा किया गया है. जैसे कश्मीर पर चर्चा हुई या किसी भी बात पर चर्चा होती है, the prime minister is seen as the chief spokesperson of the government of India. Okay, then the leader of the nation represents a nation in India, in abroad, online, offline. When he speaks, he's seen as India speaking. He decides on relations with other countries, right? जैसे G20 की बैठक हुई थी 2023 में इंडिया में. He's the ex officio chairperson of the Niti Aayog, which is the planning commission, fantastic body. The Atomic Energy Commission, all these bodies, he's the ex officio chairperson. The prime minister automatically, whoever is the prime minister, that's why ex officio ka matlab wahi hai. As a result of the office of the prime minister, that person also becomes the chairperson of bodies like the Niti Aayog and the Atomic Energy Commission. Collective responsibility, this is under Article 75(3) of the Constitution. Please remember that. They're collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. Why? Because the no confidence motion can be brought in only in the Lok Sabha, not in the Rajya Sabha. तो यहाँ पर Parliament नहीं लिखना. They share the responsibility for the policy decisions. In the event of a no confidence motion, all of them have to go. Okay. Individual responsibility is to the President of India. Collective responsibility is to Lok Sabha. The minister is answerable. I already explained to you that they are answerable to Parliament for department under his control. Also responsible for, like for instance, if there is any kind of information, sensitive information that is leaked from a particular ministry, the minister will be held responsible. Aisa hua bhi hai, okay? That the minister is held responsible for any kind of leaks of sensitive information from his office. So that is how this thing. How is the authority of the prime minister checked? Through no confidence motion, through interpellation, by the opposition, and by the media and the press and public opinion in general. So that's how the authority of the prime minister is checked in India. I hope आपको पूरी तरह से समझ में आ गया. It's all very clear. Thank you very much for your attention. Please share and subscribe to the channel and let me know if you have any doubts, and there will be many more papers which will be putting out. But apart from that, if you want access to some real high quality, not plain vanilla, we don't do plain vanilla kind of test papers. Okay, वो काम हम नहीं करते हैं. We will ask you questions that will test your understanding of the concept. उस तरह के questions अगर आपको चाहिए तो please check out the history and civics success test papers, which I do think are one of the best available anywhere. Okay, because so samajh ke, and this is a subject which I am fascinated by and have a deep understanding, so it becomes quite interesting to ask those kind of questions. Okay, tata, bye bye, thank you very much.